I only recently started getting back into like the Hollywood formulaic, like non-critical thinking stuff, and I'm already sick of it again. I thought it would, take a little while longer for it to happen, but it's kind of shocking, and at the same time it's disappointing because I'm like, man, how do people watch this stuff? I thought the visuals of the movie were kind of insane. Like, I'm a car guy and it's rare that someone actually gets this stuff right. But really, no matter how much they try to actually like appeal to people like me, to like enthusiasts like me, this isn't really a movie for car guys. Like, there's the enthusiast side and there's the normie side. And you got to pick which one you want to appeal to. You can either pick one or the other. You could go the Fast and Furious 1 routes or 2 or Tokyo Drift route and appeal to the car guys, or you can appeal to the normies with like Fast and Furious 5 and 6 and all that stuff. That's not to say that like, car guys won't enjoy it. Like, they can watch it and if they don't have story standards, they'll be like, "Ooh, pretty." But it's the normies that this is made for. Those are the ones that'll really deeply enjoy it. Like, not everybody in this kind of world is some like giant antagonist, but because it's a big budget Hollywood movie, the suits always come in and that they take every opportunity to make the movie as formulaic as possible. Like, the other racers don't race with like angry faces as if they're the bad guys. They're all main characters of their own story. If you ever raced, you'd know that like the other racers are not like one-dimensional characters and they don't act like it. And this whole like man versus giant corporation thing is just too much. It's like giant corporation wants to do something stupid, man wants to do something smart. Man wins and proves the giant corporation wrong. And now the giant corporation is on the side of the man. Cool, that's resolved. But then it's like the movie just forgets, and then it forgets and forgets over and over and over again. It's like, I thought we were past this. I thought we resolved it. This is a finished conflict. But now that I think about it, I honestly think that the reason why the vice president guy is so cartoonishly evil is partially because the passionate people are projecting that image onto him from working with all the suits who want to make this movie as accessible as possible to the normie crowd. Like, if anything, that makes me appreciate the movie even more. Because if you think about it, if that's the edge they were going for, then the more cartoonishly evil the vice president guy is in the movie, that kind of lets you know like how, stupid the people in Hollywood, the suits in Hollywood actually are. And honestly, fuck the normie crowd. Great visuals, decent sound, but ultimately the characters are so surface level. Like, I'm a car guy, sure, but you get jaded to cars eventually. You get jaded to, supercars, and then you get jaded to tuners, and then you get jaded to classics, and then you get jaded to the takeover meets. You get jaded to everything. But the only thing that you don't ever get jaded to is the people. And that's why these guys who are on YouTube talking about like, oh, the variable valve timing cam head replacement shaft time to the fuel injectors to release the perfect ratio of 14 parts air and 1 part fuel to the turbo back into the air intake manifold while allowing the rod bearing. Like, shut the fuck up.
The 2JZ GTE engine from a Toyota Supra with a V160 Toyota transmission and a Ford 8.8 rear end. It has a 72mm turbo, and the ECU is an AEM Infinity. It's been caged and channeled, which means, okay, there is no way a 2JZ is fitting in this engine bay. I'm sure you think you can do it, and maybe some people hang the front of the engine like really close to the front of the car, but this one is back. They had to really cut the firewall. There's not much firewall left, and also the floor to make room for the transmission. So it's a funny car at this point. And it also has to have custom front and rear cross members. These are Workmeister wheels. And of course, it has a line lock. The fuel system runs on an A1000 computer and is using 1700 injectors. And by the way, the whole front end of this car is tubed. It still uses the STI brakes though. And at the rear wheels, it's making 655 horsepower.
Regular car reviews is such a fucking nerd. Like, that's actual nerd shit. Like, people get so deeply invested in their hobby and they think it's cool. Like, they feel FOMO when they're at car meets and they can't understand all the bullshit terminology that people say. Like, don't feel left out. These guys are losers. It's not cool to be like that deep into a hobby that's so disconnected from reality. You'd much rather have a lot of hobbies and be okay at all of them and just have fun being an amateur all the time. And that's the thing that this movie doesn't understand. It follows the idea that like there are purists and there are suits, and the purists have fun with their hobby and the suits ruin that fun. But there's also a third group of people, And it's the people who have the most fun, even more fun than the purist, because they don't take shit too seriously. Although tons of movies might act like, if you're into an art form, it's fun, the more you are into it. And like, if you're less purist, then, you're more like the bad guy in the movie. But no, the bad guy in the movie is just stupid. Like, you could enjoy a hobby or not enjoy a hobby or be somewhere in the middle and also not be stupid at the same time. The movie has its ups and downs. I just wish they spent more time developing people's characters and less time on this whole like, oh, Ferrari is evil. Oh, the marketing people at Ford are evil. Oh, the guys who put on this Ford event are evil. And like, okay, fine. If you have time for that, sure. But it's like, there's things that you're sacrificing time for to have this stuff in. Like the fact that there's so much depth in the story to be told about the whole process of creating the Ford GT. That whole thing is basically just glossed over. The movie was okay. And to be honest, it's one of the better car movies I've seen. But car movies usually just suck. The thing is, cars aren't art form. The whole of a car is greater than the sum of its parts. The fact that people anthropomorphize them, the fact that people make noises out of them, the fact that people like drift their shopping carts, in like supermarkets or whatever, and make like drifting and shifting noises and stuff like that. It's why people name their cars. If it was just a hunk of metal that you just took from point A to point B, nobody would ever bother to name their cars. And if you're really a car enthusiast, like this is what does it. Cars ultimately make you feel like a kid. They're a fantasy. They put you into a world of fantasy. They're an animal that doesn't actually exist. We don't like go around doing anything exciting anymore. We're not, like matadors. We're just going around living sedentary lifestyles, consuming media, but we still have the urge to be one with nature. And like cars are an opportunity of they're a beast of nature that you can actually tame. That feeling, the qualia, it's more fantasy than anything else. And that's why car guys love Fast and Furious, because it's not realistic. In the same way those old Need for Speed games weren't realistic, like your sensation of a fast car in the same way is just as unrealistic. It feels like you're going warp drive. Like, have you ever hit a clean fishtail on an off-ramp or on-ramp? The sensation is unreal. It's literally not real. It's fantasy. The best car movies are actually secretly fantasy movies. And like the audience doesn't need to know that, but the writer should know that. And it's pretty obvious when you think about it. Nobody would actually drive their car over an opening bridge. Cars don't actually shoot blue flames out the back. Girls don't actually offer themselves up as a prize for winning a race. It's fantasy. But if you've dealt with cars of this caliber in real life, you know fantasy exists. So why not take it there? Why not take it all the way? All this to say, this movie is fine, okay? But Tokyo Drift is so much better that to demonstrate how much better it is, I'm going to need to put a real gap in the points between the two. So, although Ford v Ferrari is better than a lot of other things I'm giving to this rating and rating points above it, I'm going to give it a 2, just to make a point on how much better these other movies are. Actually, I'll give it a 3.
It's Filthy Frank, motherfucker. It's Filthy Frank, bitch. Let's get some pussy tonight.
And just as this movie is hypocritical for criticizing the people who sacrifice greatness for mass appeal, yet the movie itself forgoes any sort of greatness again for the sake of mass appeal, I will also be hypocritical and criticize getting too deep into a hobby and taking it too seriously, while diving way too deep into this movie and taking it way more seriously than it was ever intended to be taken. Lifestyle.
Alright, just watch it. Even though right is sitting right for the